Hey, what's up guys? JayzTwoCents here, and you guys have been giving me a lot of crap on social media saying I have been tweeting this video and teasing it for way too long. Well, the time has finally come where we are going to take a look at AMD's new 300 series graphics cards, starting with the 390, and I'm going to pit it up against the equally matched pricing of the GTX 970, and we are going to see who is king of the hill of the $330 range graphics cards. The built-in res and water pump mounting locations, improved airflow, and massive radiator support make the defined S from Fractal Design the obvious choice for water cooling enthusiasts. The S doesn't stand for sexy, but it should. Now, ever since the 300 series was kind of leaked and just chatted about well before E3, there was a lot of the word rebranding thrown around, and I was one of those ones that kind of thought to myself, you know, AMD rebranding the graphics card would be a terrible, terrible thing. And I think rebranding as a whole is something that people would definitely frown upon. But you got to realize there is a difference between rebranding and refreshing. Now, here's the way I kind of look at it. A rebrand would be if we took one of these graphics cards off this shelf, which was a previous generation, changed absolutely nothing about it, put a new label on it, and then sold it as something else. That would actually be a rebrand. Now, I don't think refresh is necessarily a bad thing. Now, a lot of companies actually refresh a lot of product lines because of advancements in manufacturing processes where they can do things more efficiently, they can get better power delivery, lower heat, and they will package that as a new product, even though the architecture remains mostly unchanged. Now, this is something Intel even did with the Haswell and Devil's Canyon CPUs. You've got the 4770K, which everyone complained about. It was a terrible overclocker, and it got extremely hot because of a poor thermal interface material used under the heat spreader. So people got very upset over the heat of the Intel CPUs, specifically the 4770K. So they did a minor refresh where they changed the power delivery to the CPU core to try and get the temperatures down, as well as improving the manufacturing process of the way that the heat spreader is actually applied to the die. So you get the 4790K. Now that's kind of what we have here, where AMD has had several years now to kind of refine its manufacturing process, and we've had about a year and a half, about 20 months or so since the Hawaii 290X launched, and now we are sitting here looking at the 390 and 390X. Now they are based on the same Hawaii core that the 290 and 290X is based on. But of course they have been able to improve the manufacturing process. In my personal experience so far here, I've spent a lot of time with this card already. This isn't one of those reviews where I kind of do my beginning of the video and then I do the benchmarks and then I come back and tell you what I thought. I've already fully benchmarked this card, and I've done it now for 2 weeks straight. And I've redone the tests and did them again with different drivers. And so I've gotten very intimate. I've gotten very intimate with this card already. Now, I want to be the first to say that this is not a rebranded card. Like I said, if they took the 290X, changed nothing about it, and slapped a label on it to call it something new, then it would be a rebrand. This is a refresh. They have gotten the temperatures down on the core, giving you more overclocking headroom. I'm not sure how they did it, but I was able to overclock this 390 farther than any 290 or 290X series card that I was able to get my hands on in the past. It runs cooler, and it has faster memory, and 8 gigs of it. So they've changed a lot about it. Now, I think a lot of people were hoping that the 300 series cards were gonna have a new core. But obviously the Tahiti core made its way into Fiji. Now, whether or not Fiji cores are going to make their way down into the mainstream graphics cards, I have no idea. So let's go ahead and talk about MSI's offering here, because one of the benefits of this card is the fact that pretty much every card on the market, 390, 390X, 380, they are all custom PCBs. They are all board partner designs where they've taken the core and the architecture of the RAM and they have built it to specifications that they feel meets their gaming needs. Now, MSI obviously includes a very sexy backplate on the back of their gaming series. That's always good to see. It's ventilated so that you don't have a lot of heat saturation getting stuck under the heat spreader, and it gives a heavy card like this more rigidity. The heat sink on this thing is bigger than just about any heat sink I've ever seen, which is good because the Hawaii core, as we know, is still notoriously hot. But there are 4 massive heat pipes running the entire length of the card. You can see they come all the way out here, and massive, massive, massive aluminum heat sinks on here, keeping everything nice and cool. Now, one of the things I have always complained about, and I've always used my Asus 290X Matrix Platinum card as a prime example, are companies that don't actively cool the VRMs. Well, MSI is actively cooling the VRMs. The heat plate on here directly contacts the VRM and goes into the main heat sink. So your main heat sink is actively cooling the VRM, not a dinky little billet strip of powder of heat sink that's just taped on and is supposed to cool by downdraft of already heated air. Nope, it is taking the heat and it is going to transfer it to the heat pipes on this card. On top of that, you also have a heat spreader that runs the entire length of the card that's going to be giving some cooling to the RAM as well. So MSI has really taken some of the cooling complaints that AMD fans have had about the 290 and 290X and have definitely integrated it into this card. Now on the back here, it's got two DVI, it's got your DisplayPort and an HDMI 1.4 on the back. So it's going to give you good connectivity. I like to see dual DVIs because a lot of people are still running panels that are 1080p, 144 hertz or less, and they're going to be able to utilize DVI, especially if you're going to be running multiple panels. Now, just like all of the other gaming series cards from MSI, you have the white glowing logo on the top, and then you've got two 100mm fans keeping things nice and cool. Now, unfortunately, I've said this before, this card is only going to appeal to two different people. And that is going to be people who want a red themed build or people who just don't give a crap about the color. So I don't think it's really hurt their sales though, otherwise they would have probably changed the color already. All right, enough chatting about the card. You guys want to see performance, and let me tell you what numbers you're about to look at. I did, and this took a long time. So feel free to hit that like button for the amount of hours it took to get these numbers. I ran the 290X Matrix Platinum as kind of my baseline to compare it to previous generation, and one of the cards that was considered one of the best 290Xs amongst enthusiasts. I tend to disagree, but that's the card that I used. I used my EVGA 970 SSC, the super clocked, which is a custom PCB, and the MSI 390 8GB card here. Now I ran the Matrix Platinum at the max 1075 overclock that I was able to get out of it, which was not great. I ran this thing at stock speeds, which was I believe 1050, and its max overclock, which was 1200. I've never achieved 1200 in any AMD card I've ever received, so that was great. And the SSC running at its factory clock of 1170, I believe it was, 1170 or 1190, which is where the boost went to, and then overclocked to 1442. So you're gonna see, what, 5 different numbers on the charts. You're gonna see overclocked and stock speed. So you guys complain that I do overclocked. Well, I went ahead and put both numbers in there so you guys can see how the performance also scaled. So without further ado and enough chatting, let's go ahead and take a look at those charts.
Transition.
Well, there you go. Those are those numbers. And like I said, it took so many hours to do those benchmarks. And then I did them 3 times each just to make sure I had good averages. Now, if you look at those charts, obviously you can see that these two cards were just leapfrogging. Stock for stock, the 390 was faster. Overclock the 970, it's faster. But overclock the 390, and it's faster. Now, I have no idea of knowing if all of the cards are gonna reach 1200. In fact, this thing was able to reach about 1250, but it crashed in a couple of tests and passed others. So I pulled it all the way back to 1200 to be a number that I thought would be a good median. Who knows? But even if it only overclocked to say 1175 or something around there, it's still going to beat the 970. And it still has a full usable 8 gigabytes of VRAM on there for good buffer when it comes to 1440p. I still don't think this card or the 970 by themselves should ever be considered for 4K gaming. These cards themselves are just not powerful enough. You would have to Crossfire SLI them. But I'm telling you right now, the amount of benefit you get for $329 at Newegg right now, at the time of making this video, 329 bucks, you can get this beast of a graphics card and get the kind of performance that you were seeing in the charts, you know, just a minute ago. I said it to a couple of the vendors that I currently work with that offer GTX graphics cards. I said, this card needs to give them concern for their $350 970s, because this is $20 cheaper, giving you more FPS, a lot more VRAM, and it's going to give you a lot more future compatibility with titles starting to use a lot more VRAM than they are core. So I really personally, at this point, where we are today, cannot offer or recommend a 970 of any variant over a 390 at the same price point, actually, with the 390 being a little bit cheaper. Don't know if I ever thought I would say that, but this is good. We need this type of performance comparisons and competition in the market, because what's the logical answer to this going to be? NVIDIA's got to drop the price of the 370. There's no way it makes sense now. The 970 used to kind of be the price point king for the $350 or $329 to $350 range. They dropped the price of the 980 down to $500 when the 980 Ti came out. But they really, really should have dropped the price of the 970 down to $300, $299, or maybe $275, because honestly, this is the way you need to go if that's your price point. So there you go, guys. My review of the R9 390 here from MSI. I can't say enough good about it. That's why I was so excited in the Fury video. I don't know if you guys saw that I slipped some of these benchmark numbers in the Fury video, because I benchmarked this before I did the Fury. I just waited to see what was going to happen with drivers on this, and so the drivers obviously for the 300 series card are solid. Overclocking was great. I don't know if everyone will be able to achieve 1200. I hope. I actually achieved 1250. I backed it down to 1200 because I wanted to do a number that I thought more people would be able to achieve. I didn't want to take what might have been a golden sample and flaunt it and taunt it out there, but I pulled it back to 1200, and I know a lot of people achieve 1200 megahertz on their 200 series cards, or 290 and 290Xs, so this thing is a freaking monster. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit the subscribe button and stick around. I got a lot more stuff coming up on the channel here. I've even got a custom AMD build that I'm doing. It's gonna have a GTX 980 graphics card in there, but it is gonna be an all custom acrylic / PETG bent tubing in there, full custom, you know, K-slabs case. It's gonna be pretty badass. One of the best AMD systems that's gonna be built publicly on YouTube. Why AMD? Well, that's what the customer can afford. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and hop on out of here. Follow on social media, Twitter, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. If you guys have any questions, there's always the forums, JayzTwoCents.com. And I'll go ahead and stop peddling all my social media now, and I'm gonna get the hell on out of here. So feel free to watch another video or watch another YouTuber who you guys enjoy. Maybe Barnacules or Linus Tech Tips or something. Anyway, let's strengthen that community, guys. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.